Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Matt, are you excited for this week's episode? Because I think I am. I feel like we got it's a little bit of a different show this week.
Yeah. Well, what's actually really funny is that this episode almost never happened.
True.
We were talking about it, and we were like, no, maybe this, maybe a little that. This week's a little struggling a little bit. We're a little busy this weekend. Blah blah blah. And we were like, you know what? Let's just skip a week. Let's just skip a week. We'll let the other ones breathe a little bit. All that blah blah blah. All the stuff that. And then we were like, no, we can squeeze it in. We can do this.
We can make it happen.
We can make it happen. And there we go. And then blink twice, and boom, there you are.
Wow.
We're in it. Thank you.
That's an intro. You did it. Look at that. That was a perfect segue.
Yes, the movie we are reviewing this week is Blink Twice, written and directed by Zoë Kravitz, who is making her directorial debut. If that name sounds familiar, she is the actress. You can see her in The Batman. She plays Catwoman, as well as Mad Max Fury Road, the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them franchise, the Divergent franchise. She had her own show on Hulu called High Fidelity, and she's also on Big Little Lies on HBO. So really interesting to see how she does on her first round as a director, and I think there's a lot to discuss here, story-wise, and even the way the movie looks. I think it's that we're gonna have an interesting conversation there. Written and is also written by Zoë Kravitz as well as E.T. Feinbaum. They co-wrote season 1, episode 5 of High Fidelity. So she's written an episode for television with him, and then they liked when they worked together and decided to make a movie together. So that's pretty cool. I was looking at some behind the scenes, and she's actually been working on this script since 2017.
Yeah, I saw that.
So yeah. Starring Naomi Ackie, Channing Tatum, Aaliyah, Shaw Cat, Christian Slater, Adria Arjona, Simon Rex, and Haley Joel Osment, which I did not know was in this movie until I started it.
Yeah, it's like, look, that's the kid from Sixth Sense.
Yes. Look at you, all grown up and everything. I mean, he's been around. It's not to say that he's not been in movies.
That's
he's
true.
Been here or there.
What was he in? Future Man? Was that Future Man that he was in? With the guy from Hunger Games? Maybe you didn't watch that one. You watched that? Yeah, I watched it. I'm pretty sure he was in that. Something else we're doing this week. Starting this week, we're going to be doing a week-to-week review of the Penguin series and Agatha All Along. So in this episode, you'll hear episode 1 of the Penguin series and the first 2 episodes of Agatha All Along. So I think that's going to we haven't done an MCU show in a while. It's been a long time. I think Falcon Winter Soldier was the last one we did.
Well, I mean, we talked about the MCU shows, but not like this, in this presentation that we have. But also, coincidental or not, this is going to be a classic Marvel versus DC.
Ooh, that's right.
Even though it's often not, it's hard to compare the two. They are vastly different properties as far as the tone of what these shows are. But I think it's fun nonetheless. I think it's been a while since a DC show and a Marvel show has been airing at the same time. So that's going to be a fun conversation. Also, as you can see, some people, I'm trying to go to the camera here. No, I'm making it worse. Hold on. Right. Nope. Also making it worse. There's a little logo. Nope.
It's on the other side. There you go. Matt, you're so pretty.
Thank you. I am. Thank you. I am wearing a little Hans Zimmer shirt, and that's because I had the pleasure of watching Hans Zimmer live. And so I'm going to be talking about my experience This was a few weeks ago that I had saw Hans Zimmer live. He rarely goes on tour in the U.S. with this, and I'm going to talk about my experience a little bit later on to the show because it was a little tease incredible. Just putting it out there. But yeah, so a lot to discuss here in this episode, an episode that almost did not come to be, but I'm happy we were able to figure it out, and we have able to pile together a lot of good stuff here that we're going to be diving into. So to kick off, we're not going to do any news. News is a little light this week, so we're going to skip the entertainment news this week and go right into a kind of much deserved, or not deserved, but much needed Whatcha Watchin. It's been a while since we've done a solid Whatcha Watchin.
So let's kick things off. So I don't have much to report. I just started the first episode of Shogun, and it's fully deserving of all of its awards. Like, clearly I was just sleeping on it. And you told me from the very beginning, but man, I have to tell you, just what really gets me even more than the cinematography is the dialogue. I think the dialogue between the characters is just so rich and just so beautiful. So I'm excited to kind of go on this journey.
And a journey you will go on. It's like I said, I feel like this is one of those shows. I mean, it just came off of the Emmys winning all of the awards. And so a great time to start it if you have not seen Shogun. More of a reason to watch it with all the Emmy wins. But it's definitely a sit down and pay attention show.
Yes, it did. Most certainly is, Matthew. But you know what? It must be good because if you power through a sit down, pay attention show, it must be good. So
it is very good.
It is most definitely worth your time. I finished the last season of Abbott Elementary. I thought it was a solid season. I thought it was pretty good. I kind of wanted a little bit more at the end. I felt like it ended, and I was like, oh, that's kind of it. But I don't know. It was a decent. I think it was the playground episode. But overall, solid season. I would probably not as good as season 2, but we got some good reveals in this season. Kind of the path we knew the show was gonna be taking. So it's interesting that now, and this is kind of my way to talk about it without kind of spoiling it. But it seems like they've done the thing, like this, like the one big thing that the sitcoms like that they kind of like tease for you, like in the very beginning of thing that they're building up to that's gonna happen. Well, it actually happened. So now is the test to see if the show can really survive. Because now that we've done the thing, what's going to be the next thing that's going to keep people on the hook?
Wasn't the last episode like Janine having like a house party?
Oh, that's right. It wasn't the playground.
Yeah.
It was the house party. And everything was going right. And you know, the janitor, who I appreciate that they're giving him a much bigger role. We actually got to explore a lot more of the side characters than the supporting cast than we did just Janine. So it was nice to kind of see everybody flourish in their own way during this season.
Yeah, and we know the new season's coming out this October, season 4, and I'm looking forward to it. I know I'm more of a binger when it comes to this particular show, so I might not maybe watch it week to week, or maybe watch it up to the winter break and then like catch up there, and then let a few more episodes go by, and then we'll watch it then. But this, so I mean, I think it's great that this show is even here, but as well as like ABC is killing it with Abbott Elementary. It's one of the last few comedies that can kind of survive on cable network, like network television. Most comedies now and almost all talkable, headlines TV shows are often on streamers now. It's not often that we talk about a show that is still on the network that is still creating this type of rich storytelling and comedic storytelling and these rich characters that we can find on cable network. So it's doing a great job over there.
Absolutely. So, and I think I'm in the same boat. I mean, I literally just watched the last season, and they're just about to start the new season. So, I get it, and it'll be nice to see us back to a full season, since that last season was like a half season due to the writer strike. I felt that season and the season prior were kind of abrupted due to the writer strike, so they kind of had to adjust probably their original plan of what storytelling they were going to do. So it'll be interesting to see what this season brings, since this is like a back on track from the course correction.
Yeah, I agree.
A couple of movies we checked out. Young Woman at Sea, the Daisy Ridley movie. It's based on a true story. You know, I kind of wrote it off in the beginning, but the kids, they were all Hannah and the kids were watching it, and man, it is really good. You know, I'm a sucker for like somebody trying to persevere over the odds. Like those stories, like they get me every time. Like I'm a sucker for those. But there's a scene that Daisy Ridley has where she's having this moment with her father towards the end of the film, and it is so sad and just so captivating. And like I was in tears. Like I was like, they just wrote such a beautiful moment into the film. And it just, I mean, and this is a true story about how this woman swam across the English Channel. I'm not smart. But it was a great true story kind of biopic. Well worth your watch. Have you seen it?
I have not seen it, but it's been on the list. I knew it came out on Disney Plus since July, so it's kind of like you know what's weird is like you have the list, right, and you're like, oh, what am I in the mood for? Instead of just watching it, you got to be in the right mood to watch certain movies, and this one fits right up my alley. I'm a sucker for a good sports drama, and I just have not got the time or in the right mindset to watch this movie yet. But even on Rotten Tomatoes, I knew this was a hit. That it was on the critic score, it's at 89%. For the audience score, it's at 97%. Yeah. So I knew this movie was great, like according to critics and audiences. But unfortunately, it was like surprisingly, it's a Disney movie. It's been a while since you get a live action Disney movie nowadays that's not related to a animated remake. And so they actually took the time to make this movie, had Daisy Ridley involved in this movie, kind of pour her all into it from what I'm hearing, and it came out in May, like it was like end of May, and it came in and it came out.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like it had a brief run in the theaters, and then it was quickly available to stream on Disney Plus. Almost like that was the intended location for it anyway.
Yeah, it seems like a good spot for it.
It almost feels like they decided to try to get an extra couple of bucks out of it to go watch it in the theater. I'm just gonna quickly look up the box office numbers here because it's kind of one of those movies that you didn't even know that was out unless you were looking for it.
Unless they're trying to go for a possible Oscar nod.
I don't know. Okay, so yeah, they this movie opened to $500,000. So at the end of its run, it didn't even make $1 million. So I think it was a very small, I think it had like a very limited 1 week only release. But I think the true intention was to make it a Disney Plus original. But regardless of the stuff that happened behind the scenes, I've heard this was a great movie, and it's been on the list for a while.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And the only other thing I'll say is I think it opened a great conversation because, you know, it highlights kind of women's suffrage and women rights through different sports. And it was funny because after we watched this, immediately I told them, I said, well, now that you've watched this makes me have to show you Naiad. So then we started to watch Naiad. I go, this is a very similar story, just another woman's journey. And there we go. That's two women who have completed this like amazing feat. So we haven't finished Naiad yet because it's not on my Whatcha Watchin, but I mean I remember it was one of my favorites from last year. So definitely a must watch, this film and Naiad. Highly recommend.
I'm looking forward to it. It's been on the list, so saying that if you're saying it's really good, then I might push that up a little bit higher on the watch list.
It's good to know that you value my opinion, Matthew.
I do value your opinion.
That makes me feel very good. I'm very curious.
You're the one who made me watch. Well, we just talked about this. You made me watch a show not too long ago.
Oh.
One of them was Barry, which I did end up getting to and completing.
Was it the bear?
There was what? No, it was something. Oh my God, it's gonna bother me now. It was something this year that you're sleeping on this show, you got to watch it, and I really wish I remember what it was.
Was it Shrinking?
No, that was last year or 2 years ago.
Oh, damn, that's right. They all blend together at this point.
They do all blend together. Yeah, I feel like I have to go down the list, and we don't have time.
All right,
for
well,
that.
we'll come back. We'll
come back to
bookmark
it,
that
back.
conversation for later.
There you go.
I'm actually, since you say that, I'm very curious to your response to this. So I actually went through and I watched. We were kind of coming off of the Alien train and. From watching Romulus, and so I watched 1 and 2, and I was like, well, we watched 1 and 2, so we might as well at least watch like the original, not even a trilogy, the original set of movies, the first 4 movies. So we watched Alien 3, and I think I specifically remember in this conversation, you guys all like really dogging this movie, like how terrible it is and how it's the worst one. Can I be honest with you? It's probably one of my favorite ones because of how dark the story is.
Which
I think
one?
Alien 3.
No, okay, no, hold on. We were not dogging Alien 3. I mean, granted, okay, let's just put it out there.
Okay.
Let's before we get into this, right? 1 and 2 are kind of on a league of its own, right?
What do you mean? The third one literally picks up after the second one. It's a literal continuation of the second movie. Like
it is,
like the next moment, or like in Ripley's eyes, like the next immediate thing that happens is the plane crashes and all these horrific things that happen.
I'm not talking about story-wise. I'm talking quality.
I disagree. I disagree. I think it's slower, but I think because it seems like they were trying to highlight like a more human story within like the Alien franchise. Like, yeah, you have this big alien monster, but like, let me put you in this situation with these group of people who almost like you're like on a deserted island with these people who like live a certain way and they have a certain lifestyle, and then there was that aspect of it. And I don't know. I just happen to really enjoy it. I thought it was just like a good cap off to the end of the series. Like, spoiler alert, like she sacrifices herself so that the aliens don't continue. Like, she takes the mama, and she literally jumps in and holds that thing as she like falls to her death. And the movie opens horrifically, which I think highlights like how deadly space is. Okay, this is not Disney. This is not Disney. Just because you shoot off into the space, that doesn't mean you're going to survive. But guess what? The next thing that happened, everybody who survived the second one, they all died except for Ripley because she was implanted with the alien. And we learn about this little girl who was like the highlight happy figure in the second movie. She dies. Like, she literally dies in the opening of this film, and then they throw her into like a lava pit. Her and the other guy.
I am under the same camp as the majority of people, which I'm not. Well, by the camp I'm meaning that I think it kind of negated everything that the second movie did.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Immediately killing off your main heroes, aside from Ripley, in the third movie. To me, it was a shock. I wasn't expecting them just to kill them off like that. That's number one. But number two, I don't think Alien 3 is a bad movie. I think they just went on a different direction, and it wasn't the same energy. Like, it wasn't the horror that I was getting in Alien 1, and it wasn't a like an action thriller, not really a thriller, but like an action adventure sci-fi movie that we got from Aliens. And so it was definitely under a different pace with this one. Also, David Fincher directed this movie, and this was early in his career. So he is a great filmmaker.
Yeah.
And I think he gave us a different Alien movie, but it's hard to appreciate what he was doing here when you are comparing it to like the huge left turn that it took from Aliens to Alien 3. And to your point, you almost have to take it as its own movie, rather than seeing it as a continuation from Alien and Aliens. That's just the way I see it. But
I get that, but I kind of see it as like this horrific story being told over several movies. Like, look at the awful things that Ripley had to go with. Yeah, she made the second movie. She made that is about how she made it to the next point. I mean, that's what franchise movies are. It's like everything is a continuation, kind of like how life is. Like, you end one thing and you start another. Well, she made it through that part. She battled the mother. They basically destroyed the nest or the hive. And then now we're left with like these little remnants, like the one that ends up in Romulus and so on and so forth. But then like the next thing that happens is, well, guess what? One of those things got in and killed your crew, and you guys crash landed, and now you're the one. Now you're the one to survive. And then that thing, well, actually, so it must have been two of them, because there were still, when the ship landed, there was another one that came out, and then that's the one that latched onto the dog, which was also horrific to visualize. But also very different from the first and second one, because the first and second one are the human xenomorphs, whereas the third one is almost a completely different species, because you get like this dog version of it. And I thought, that alone, and then that was the only one. It wasn't like the horde, like from the action adventure where they were just like popping out like millions of them. Just they were like never ending, and but even all three of them are completely different feels of movies, which I kind of appreciate. So like, but Alien 3 was a kind of a root back to that horror element of like, there's something chasing us, we gotta kind of get away from it, and as opposed to like fighting the masses, that is the action adventure James Cameron version. I guess I just appreciate how different all three movies are, but yet they're still telling us the same narrative. And they're able to do it. I feel like there's a, even though they are different, there is like a cohesiveness that still is to the original trilogy. I'm talking just now. When I speak about this, I am just talking about Alien 1, 2, and 3. I have not gotten to Resurrection yet.
Yeah, I do feel like that with Alien 3, for the difference between the original two, I feel like Alien 3 also leaned heavily on the visual effects rather than the practicality of the first two films. And when you look back at 3, it looks, because of it's of its time, they went out of their way to try to push the visual effects, and it just doesn't land today as well as it did. Maybe not even back then, but like it definitely doesn't stand a test of time when you compare it to the first two that were before this movie, because they were leaning on practical effects more than they were on maybe like trying to push the boundaries on visual effects. But that's another knockdown in it. But yeah, Alien 3 is not a bad film at any means. I do agree with you that there are some moments in there, and it takes bold decisions. I'll say it that way. And but yeah, like it's hard to like really it's aliens, and then people just forget about the rest. But there is a special place for Alien 3 that there is worth appreciating.
Absolutely, and I think that's really where I come from. It's not perfect. There are certain plot points that are just like, what? Like, literally, she spends half this movie building this relationship with this guy, and then like they get together, and then he's helping her, and then this dog thing just comes up and just destroys him. Like, I don't, and we don't revisit it, we don't talk about it. It just happens, and we move on. But I also attribute that to David Fincher being like, well, this is space. This is very unpredictable. Like, you don't know what this thing's gonna do. Like, who's to say? Why do you get to have your beautiful exposition? Like, who's to say that thing's not just going to come up and start randomly killing people, and then that initiates the next chase or fight or whatever the case may be. I felt like I was able to vibe with what he was trying to put out in Alien 3 overall. And then I was like, you know what? Wow, that was so different and so good. Let's watch Alien Resurrection. This should be like top tier, because, we're in the height of like where visual effects are really popping, like peak of movies. And let me just tell you, that movie is trash. Like, it is just not a good movie. Like, there's nothing good about it. It's like weirdly campy. Like, Ripley all of a sudden has like superpowers. She's a clone, but she's also like half alien. And then you see like all of like the alien variants of her, to where she like just randomly sets on fire. I don't know. It was just like we watched it. We were like, the whole time we're like, what are we watching? Like, what is happening? Like, this movie is terrible.
What's funny was that when when Sigourney Weaver was asked to come back for Alien 3, she said that I will come back for Alien 3. This is the last Alien movie that I'm doing, and I would prefer to die. If I understand this correctly, that is what she wanted. And then for Alien Resurrection, they asked her, "Hey, we want to do another one." And said, "That's great. I'm not coming back." And then they backed up the money train to her front door, and she said eventually gave in. And I think she's stated that the only reason why she came back for Resurrection because they paid her a lot of money to come back and do it.
I'm sure they did. They're like, I don't want to do it. It's like, hold on, Sigourney. Can you read this piece of paper right here? Okay. So
you want us to? We're okay if we add another 0 to that. So.
But what's sad is that like in the timeline of everything, Alien Resurrection is like the end of like the Alien storyline, is it not? Mm-hmm. Everything else is like prequels and in between.
Correct. Yeah, this is as far out as the Alien franchise has gotten, and then years later we get Prometheus and Coven, which takes place before the events of the first Alien movie, and then Alien Romulus takes place between Alien and Aliens. So
yeah, so it's weird. Hopefully, maybe Romulus will kickstart a new franchise of movies, and it'll surpass what happens in Resurrection, or they can land. They can come in and land and just land on top of clone Sigourney Weaver, so they can just get rid of that storyline. Like just like she died in Alien 3, like everybody dies. Like, all right, shit happens. You're not part of this franchise anymore.
We're gonna forget about you.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. All right.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's all I got.
Is all you got? All right. So before I talk about the stuff I've been watching, let's talk about Hans Zimmer, shall we? This man's a gem, let me tell you. I saw that he was going to be doing an American tour. The last time he did an American tour on Hans Zimmer Live, I believe it was a few years ago. I don't know the exact date, maybe 2017, 2018, but it's been a while since he's done. He's mainly doing this overseas in the UK, and it's very popular over there, and he loves just taking this tour out. And when I found out that he was bringing it back to America, I felt like this was an opportunity I could not miss. This felt like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and he was performing at the Hard Rock Live in Fort Lauderdale. And what's crazy was that these tickets are expensive. Yeah. Let's just put it out there. I don't know why it was extremely high prices. I debated even flying to a different state because the tickets were cheaper there than they were here in Florida. And he was only performing one night in Fort Lauderdale. Eventually, I had to go into the third party like StubHub and all that stuff. Find you're playing around with numbers. You're dealing with the fees and everything. I think at the end of the day, I end up paying like $250 for this, and I feel like in my mind I had a decent deal with that because all the other prices, like even going down closer to the stage, were in the $500 to $1,000, which was crazy. It is so Hans crazy. Zimmer. It is Hans Zimmer. So at this point, right, I'm going in. I'm going by myself. It's hard to ask Megan to hey, let's spend close to $500 to $600 for us to both to go on something that she might even enjoy. So this was the first concert I attended to by myself because most concerts we go together. So that's how bad I wanted to see this. I will drive from Orlando to Fort Lauderdale to see this man perform. And let me tell you, I sat down in my seat and I was not ready for what I got. It's interesting to compare this concert to what we talked about a few episodes back when we had Nick DeLorenzo on the show when we were talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. But within our before we talked about our review, we talked about our experience with John Williams. And though he was not there in attendance, he was supposed to, but he said that he was unable to attend. But we believe that the outline, what was supposed to happen that night, happened regardless. It's just John Williams was not there to conduct, and you can feel the energy that was there that night, the Hollywood Bowl. It was something completely different. We were hearing a medley of some of his classics, what we barely got, I should say, and then we also got a medley of Hollywood music in the past. So you can tell that was orchestrated, that was curated to be something completely different, and not more or less a highlight reel of John Williams' scores and what we were expecting. So although we missed out on seeing John Williams in person, I think we were able to still see his curated lineup of what he wanted to, perform that night. Hans Zimmer, on the other hand, is completely different, and this man was just here giving us fan service. Every popular score that you know him from, he performs it live. He gives us the stuff you probably forgot. He plays the favorites. And what's crazy about this is and this is probably the biggest difference from Hans Zimmer and John Williams, because it's hard to compare the two. But when I have to, and at least what I was expecting, John Williams, at least what was curated, was performing what was in the screen. He played the traditional Star Wars, he played the traditional E.T. The score. If you watch the movie, if you go on Spotify or Apple Music, you will hear the same thing just live. But Hans Zimmer, though, he gives you a personal live experience from these are riffs. These are here's the score that but then here is a 5-minute version of a live version of the score that you're familiar with. So we have guitar solos, we have drum solos, we have different takes on what So it felt so unique and different than if I were just to play it on Apple or Spotify. I'm not getting the same thing. I'm getting this is meant for a live audience. And it's great. And what's awesome was that there was I realized this before I went to go see it live, that there is a live recording of Hans Zimmer live on Apple and on Spotify right now. You can listen to it. It's 2.5 hours long. I recommend, if you can't go see him live, I recommend listening to it, because it is not the same as if you went to the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack and listened to the score. It is different, and it's really, really good. And I debated on listening to that before I listened to it live. And I'm so happy that I didn't, because that was a way better experience to hear it live and then play but play the album afterward, on my drive home, and just relive the experience all over again. There were a few differences that was on the album that was not performed live. The biggest thing was that Hans Zimmer has a long library of great scores that he's played. And so on the album, you hear the Sherlock Holmes theme and his riff off of that. That was not performed live here. I also wasn't expecting intermission. So this was about a 3-hour performance. So good for him. Also, for one night only, the stage looks incredible. The music sounds so good. And when I sit there, and I was like, all right, let's see if this is worth the price of admission, I got more than what I asked for. One of the great parts about this as well was that he brought in the original voices for some of the classic sounds that you've heard throughout his career. So he brought the original voice of Dune. So you get the screaming, that is... she's there. There was a classic song that plays from Gladiator that I'm not too familiar with, because I don't often listen to the score or watch the movie, but he also has done Gladiator, and he brought the original voice of Gladiator on stage. And then probably the one I wasn't expecting, and I'm so happy, the original voice of the Lion King. Oh, so wow. You hear the and it was so such a crowd pleasing moment, because I forgot what he just finished playing. It was more of a quiet one. I think he was finishing up Interstellar, and then it was a quick and then the whole crowd changed, the whole stage changes. It was incredible. This is one of those moments where it was a once in a lifetime experience. I don't see myself doing this again. If he comes back into town many years later, I'll try my best, but this is one of those moments where this is too good to be true, because you're hearing all these classic scores from the man himself with this huge orchestra. And it's not even orchestra is it's a weird word to use. It's a band out there. You have the chorus in the back, the drums in the front. We have and most of the performers are female, which he highlighted there. Most of the performers were also from South America and they're Ukraine. He brought top notch performers to be there on his tour, and you feel it. Everyone's having a good time. That energy is there, and you can't help but to be a fan. If you're a fan of Hans Zimmer and you're a fan of his music, he takes the time to curate something that it just brings up this energy, and it was an incredible experience. But with that, we have a few clips that you guys should hear.
All right, so the first one got us Pirates.
And you can even see it live here, like how big this stage is.
It's so good.
Yeah,
that one is so good.
It's so good. Then Pirates, and then the next clip we'll show you is Dune. You can hear the screaming lady. I mean, you just look at the stage. It's just.
Or even that monitor. Even that monitor they got right there on the top.
Yeah. It's so good.
Look at that production. That is amazing. You said the other one was Lion King?
The Lion King. The last one's The Lion King. And this is the finale of The Lion King. I'll let this play out. Chills. Ernesto, when I tell you that, because he played like Pirates of the Caribbean, the score there, and then he went to intermission. I was in tears. I was like, this is wild. Like, you get these unique sounds that, like, they're so familiar, but yet it's fresh. I like, this was again something that I will cherish for a long time, to be in attendance, watch the man himself, just being like, because he even said that night, he's like, let's think of this as a dinner party, and we're just here to have a good time. And I definitely did that. That's actually what happened that night.
My one question for you: did he do Flight from Superman?
Yes, he did.
I would have paid all the money just to hear him. That is, quite frank, that's my favorite song. My favorite score from him ever. If I'm in the gym and I need to pump me up, that's the song I put on. It is so, that score is so good. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, and if you follow us on our social media channels on TikTok, Facebook, and even Instagram, I'm going to be posting a little bit more, from a few clips more from the concert. And yes, he plays Flight, and it's so good because, like, there's no introduction really when he's about to play. So then, like, he sits down at the piano, it gets quiet, and then, like, you can see on the side screens, they zoom in on his fingers on the piano, and then all of a sudden it's like, do do, and then the crowd just goes nuts, like, just those two little notes, and like do 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 do, and then, like, it just builds from there.
Oh my gosh, so good.
Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy to think, like, he's done Wonder Woman. He played Wonder Woman. He played Superman, Flight. He plays as Dark Knight. He played Inception, Interstellar, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Lion King, Gladiator, Last Samurai. It was just like and it's an incredible night. It was an incredible night. It was worth every penny. But yeah, it's great to see, like, you hear the music, you love the music, and then here's an opportunity to go hear it live from the man himself. Fantastic. But anyway, enough of Hans Zimmer. There's also other things that I watch. One of them was Mr. Throwback. We talked about earlier that I'm a sucker for a sports drama, and like, you're just in a mood to just kind of turn your brain off and put on something. This is exactly what this was. This was a show that I wasn't really planning on watching, but it had a small interest, and I saw that it was a mini series, and it only had 6 episodes, and they were 30 minutes long. And I said, well, there we go. That's the recipe right there. It has Adam Pally, I believe his name is Adam Pally. Yeah, it's like a mockumentary style story. Ego Wodum and Steph Curry are also involved, and Steph Curry is involved in almost all the episodes, but he definitely takes like a supporting role in it. But it's more or less about him, and it's Adam. I think it's Polly, Adam Patty. Yeah. Either way, he is the main character of the story, and he is kind of like the old friend of Stephen Curry, and he got himself into a situation, and then a kind of a web of lies that kind of contributes to that. And so then you have his documentary crew going in and kind of following him around, and yeah, it was funny. It was good for what it was. 6 episodes, 30 minutes. It was a quick, breezy watch for me, and I enjoyed it.
It's Adam Pally.
Adam Pally, thank you. Yeah, I haven't really seen him in much. I know he's a comedian, so this is like the first time I actually got to see him, like, do a few things. And I know Ego Wodum from SNL, and she's great. So yeah, I think it's a solid show. It's something that give you a few chuckles. Like I said, a very quick watch. And Stephen Curry definitely holds his own. I give him credit. Like aside from being, an NBA All-Star, he's a pretty decent actor, kind of just playing an over-exaggerated version of himself. And the writing team on this did a really good job with it. So a quick little watch I recommend it for anyone who's slightly interested.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
And the last thing I want to talk about is a movie that we actually tried to review here on the show, but it only had a very limited run in theaters, and so the times didn't really work out to be convenient for the both of us to watch it, because I actually had to go out of my way to watch Kevin Smith's new movie, the 4:30 movie. And we had talked about this a while ago when Kevin Smith bought his own movie theater and all the things that he was going to do at the new movie theater that he bought. He bought his childhood home movie theater at the Atlantic Highlands. I think it was called the Atlantic Cinema, sorry. And then when he bought it with a few of other people, and now he owns it, and now he changed it to Small Castle Cinemas, and it still retains like its old vibe. But one of the things he said he was going to do when he bought it was he was going to have events there. He was going to have like certain marathons and exclusive showings of certain movies, and then one of which he said that he was going to make his next movie at the theater, and it was going to be about a group of kids just kind of spending an afternoon in the 80s, sorry. Theater hopping in the theater, and I felt like that just felt very genuine of a premise, because that's what we used to do as kids. You used to go in and like you would find the right show times that aligned in with your day.
That's right.
And you're like, okay, you almost planned it out. It's like, okay, this is the day, guys. We're going to see this movie at this time. That gives us about 30 minutes before the next movie starts. And then we have to go at the concessions to make sure we're buying popcorn. So it looks like they were going to see the next movie, but we bought something. So like there's always like this trickery that we were doing to spend the day or the afternoon at the movie theater. And what I really liked about the 4:30 movie is that, yeah, Kevin Smith brings his own style to it. He has his own like juvenile humor that he typically puts in his movies, and in some cases I feel like it's like that's fine, but it really worked in this one because the premise, you are dealing with kids. So the juvenile humor that comes with that, it makes sense because these are kids. And yeah, it just has like this interesting draw to it that has this relatability to it that I really like. It just feels simple, and I really enjoyed what he had to say about this. And there was a moment in this movie, there's a moment in the 4:30 movie that kind of resonated with me a lot. And if you listen to Kevin Smith podcast, it's Fat Man Beyond. And he says this a lot on the podcast. And there was a line in the movie that he has said in the podcast, but now he put the line in the movie. And I always resonated with that line, but I'm happy to see it in a movie like this that he put it in there. And he said, if you stick around for the credits, you're a filmmaker. You just haven't made a movie yet. And I just find that line so strong of a saying, because like, we stick around for the credits all the time. We appreciate the hard work that goes into filmmaking. And just to say that, yeah, if you're sticking around, you're watching this stuff, you have a love for it. You're basically a filmmaker. You're just waiting to make your next movie. It's just like an inspiring line for people who love movies. But another line that he says in the movie was that most people come to the movies to escape their lives, but some people, well, let me rephrase. It says, most people come to the movies to escape their lives, but like you, you come here because movie makes lives make sense. And there's so many times that I can go to a movie and experience that movie and take away something that can help me more or less be a better person. And those lines were basically together in the movie. And to me, like, it almost brought me to tears just listening to it, because it hit so hard to home of how you watch a movie and a movie makes life make sense. And especially when we've been doing our foreign films, like, sometimes it just makes you see the world differently. It makes you appreciate maybe some of the little things in life. It makes you think differently than when you have before, when you see some of these true stories. It's holds true to what it means potentially for certain people to watch a movie. It hit home and then you also have your other storylines that are taking place in there. Also, this guy has a crush on a girl, and he has his first date going to the movie, so he's anticipating that. So you get that adolescence in there as well, and you're just like, yeah, this is something special. Like, there were some moments that didn't land with me around the middle, but I just equated to that, just kids being kids. And at the end of the day, there was a lot of sweet, touching moments in here that I was able to connect with as a movie lover and a person who also loves going to the movies.
It sounds great, but I think it's great that you're right. Like, how many times do you watch a movie and go, man, that's true? But it, like, even if the movie's okay, you get to learn a lot about, like, human nature, and just, like, you get to see different variations of how certain personalities respond to certain situations. And the crazy part is that if you pay attention, a lot of them resonate with people, very similar people in real life. Like, sometimes if they do something and they act like a character you've seen, like, there's some truth in that. And I feel like a lot of times you're able to predict what somebody's going to do based off all these different variations of these different people that you've seen. If the character is written true to that personality, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And it's weird because I'm a fan of Kevin Smith more than I would say I'm a fan of all of his movies. And so, like, to see him in his career make a movie like this, it feels also different from the movies he's done in the past, and maybe more similar to the movies he's done like earlier in his career. But this one just felt like it just came from a special place. Like, this one felt like it came from a movie lover's place. And that I can resonate with 100%. So for all the movie lovers out there, Kevin Smith, the 4:30 movie is definitely one to kind of go in there. Again, maybe some of the stuff you might think like, oh, okay, this is a little cheesy, but I don't know. It worked for me. It worked for what movie they were trying to do. Also, you get to see a lot of like classic Kevin Smith characters, not characters, but like people that he brings on all of his movies. That's also in here as well. So you get to see those cameos return. And it's just a simple story, a simple love story. Also, Bear McCreary is the composer of this movie. That name sounds familiar. He's done the Godzilla score. He's like the Godzilla King of Monsters score. He's done the Walking Dead score. He's done the God of War score. He's been around for a while. But what he does for this movie, I immediately listened to the soundtrack after I was done watching this movie, because there's a lot of great beats in there. There's a song called 24K. I want to get the name right. A 24 Karat Case of Love. And when I was hearing it was the end credits of the movie. When I was hearing this, I was like, oh, I've never this it feels classic 80s, like a classic 80s song. It's like, oh, I never heard this song before. So I Shazammed it. And then I was like, oh no, this is an original song he made for the movie. And it's so funny that he caught me off guard. I'm like, oh, this is a classic 80s song. I wonder what it is. I might not have heard of it before. And it was like, no, it's just, this was an original song he made for this movie, and it's so good. It's great. So good. The score is great. Like, I really want to see this movie in the theater for just the nature of what this movie was. So I know probably give it in a few weeks, it's probably going to be available to watch at home. So I recommend anyone to do that, because I know the theater run is limited. But I had a great time watching this movie. It was so good.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Sounds like I can't wait, to check it out when it comes to streaming.
Yeah. But yeah, that's basically all we've been watching. So now we're going to be diving into our weekly binge, which is First, we're talking about Agatha All Along, the first 2 episodes. So, Ernesto, you can kick it off.
All right, so Agatha All Along, first 2 episodes debuted on the 18th. First episode was Seekest Thou Road, directed by Jay Schaefer, written by Jay Schaefer. It kind of opens as a crime noir TV series titled Agnes of Westview, which I felt like was a nice little nod to the kind of what WandaVision put out, where we got a lot of callbacks to classic TV. So kind of felt like it was in that same vein. She plays this police detective. They're fixated on this Jane Doe murder. The kid breaks into her house looking for the road. Agnes thinks it's tied to the murder. She arrests him, and then this is where we get introduced to Rio Vidal, who's an FBI agent, played by Aubrey Plaza. She comes to Agnes, but she realizes her Jane Doe she's seeing is actually Wanda's body, but you don't actually ever get to see her face. And then through that, Agnes is actually the witch Agatha Harkness, who's been trapped under Wanda's spell. She wakes up from the spell. She realizes that all her powers are gone, and that Vidal is a fellow witch who she obviously has history with. She's there to kill her, but she tells her, "Oh, just come back. Let me get my powers first. Don't make it easy for yourself. Like, wait till I'm powerful enough to at least fight you."
Yeah.
But then she warns her that the Salem 7 will soon come after her. After she leaves, she's unsure what to do about the teen who's actually kidnapped under the influence of Wanda's spell. I felt like as a kind of introduction to the series, I was actually kind of liked it. I actually liked it better than I thought I was going to.
Yes, I 100%. I'm with you there. This was kind of one of those shows that we're just capitalizing off of the success of WandaVision, but the first episode really kind of
decent. It was good.
I thought it proven itself of oh no, we have a story to tell here. This isn't just an easy we're just trying to capitalize on the Agatha and how she was a popular villain. No, we actually have this interesting story that they've brought into it, and I do want to bring up a few things before we dive into the second episode. Obviously, we have you said the True Detective. It was a parody off of True Detective and Mayor of Easttown. You get it's like a very drama cops vibe that we were getting. I thought it was really cool that we got to see her pull off the layers of her different quote unquote eras that she was doing, and so you got to see the 90s version, the all the different television eras, and as she's trying to get out of Wanda's spell, she is literally peeling off those layers. There was an interesting rumor that I read that I kind of liked, so I'm gonna say it here. It says that the deceased body is most likely not referencing to Wanda at all, and not Wanda being dead, I should say, because currently in the MCU, Wanda is dead. Whether that happens, whether that stays or not, that's left to be determined. But in the MCU, Wanda is dead. So they're saying that the deceased body is most likely not referring to Wanda being dead, but might actually be a visual representation of the death of the Darkhold. And they think because the toe tag is a Westview library card, and the previous owners being Wanda and Agatha that we later see appear in that scene. So they think this is a visual representation of Darkhold because at the end of Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness, Wanda technically sacrificed herself, but as well as killed and destroyed the Darkholds from all multiverses. And so they feel like this is that representation of the Darkhold.
She they also, just to add to that, she was spelling out an anagram, and in it read Dark H, and she had to throw it down. So I actually agree. I kind of agree with that theory. I could see that.
Yeah, to your point, so this is the library card book that was on the top of the library card. It said dialogue and rhetoric, known history of learning and debate, which is an anagram for Darkhold. So to me, I thought that theory holds a lot of weight. And and they're saying that all the other stuff there, the body, the red hair, is just more or less like a red herring of saying that this is actually the Darkhold. Fun facts though, on the library card there are a few dates that you can see on there, and some of those dates are actually birthdays of Elizabeth Olsen, Jack Kirby, Kevin Feige, and Stan Lee.
Okay. So that's cool.
Fun fact there. And the other theory that has been running around with the introduction of "quote unquote" the teen is that they're saying this might be Agatha's son, Nicholas Scratch, who is dead in this series, and we get little little hints that she has a son and is no longer with us. And then I think in the next episode they even make a reference. It's like, oh, you're doing another child sacrifice, and she made like Agatha had a reaction to that. Like she's like, oh, did you just go there? And so yeah, I thought that was interesting, another theory going on. But let's talk about but otherwise I thought episode 1 was great. You can also see the tension between Audrey Plaza's character. What's her name again?
Rio. What did I say? Rio Vidal.
Rio Vidal. Like you can tell when they were fighting, like they have history, clearly. Some people are theorizing that they were lovers at one point and she betrayed her. And you can definitely see that there's some tension building in there. And I like Agatha's line that's just like, let me just get my purple back and then we can continue off this fight again. Yeah. Like I said, I thought it was a solid first episode to make it feel like, okay, I think we have something here. I'm interested. Let's continue.
Yeah, I can see that. And it's definitely geared toward a much more adult audience. I mean, this is like the first time in MCU you actually see brief nudity. Like, you see Agatha's ass when she walks away.
That's right. And I think it was even funny when she's talking to her neighbor as like, how long have you been gone for? And all this stuff. And like, you can tell that she is like, also a compliment to Kathryn Hahn as an actress. She killed it in this episode, not only with the crime drama stuff that she was doing in the beginning, but also just like when she becomes Agatha again, like she doesn't miss a beat when doing this. So I think Kathryn Hahn's doing some great work here.
Agreed. I thought she was fantastic. All right, so then we move on to episode 2, also debuted same day. The episode title is Circle Sewn with Fate, Unlock Thy Hidden Gate. Also directed by Jay Schaefer, but this episode was written by Laura Donney. So the teen reveals he's freed Agatha from her spell and wishes. So he's the one who frees her, and he wants to go along with her to the Witch's Road, which rewards any witch who survives with what they desire most. In Agatha's case, obviously the restoration of her powers. She then realizes that her magic is preventing her from learning any personal information about the teen, including his name, which, okay, whatever. I was fine with that. I thought it was a little weird. Like, you're just going to have to, I'm just the teen. So she needs the coven. So they basically go on like the recruitment, a mini Avengers recruitment tour for her to get her witches, to get her to open the portal. She gets these 3 different witches, all who have different skill sets, who all have they all have the reasons they also want to go on the road as well. She doesn't want to recruit Vidal for obvious reasons, so instead she turns to resident Sharon Davis, who is the mom from that 70s show, if you didn't know.
She was also in WandaVision as well. She had a brief role in WandaVision. So
interesting. I don't remember
She came
that.
back.
Okay. They do the ritual to open the road. The teen is upstairs and notices the 7, those other witches.
The Salem 7.
Excuse me, the Salem 7. They start going after them, and they escape through the road, and then that's pretty much how the second episode ends. It was fine. It was good. I think it works. It worked well to have it as a complement to episode 1, because now we're seemingly like on the journey. How many episodes? Let's see. How many episodes were in this? For 9 episodes.
9 episodes over the course of, I believe, 6 weeks, because they premiered with 2 episodes, and they're going to end with the last 2 episodes on Halloween.
Well, the 30th, but yes.
Yeah, sorry, the 30th. Yes.
Yeah, I think overall, it was solid. I think I'm just surprised because I actually expected this to be like not good. Like I had I'm just being honest. I had very low expectations. Yeah. Like the naming was all back and forth. I mean, we're still very early on. Like things don't really kick off until like episode 5. But I'm intrigued for the ride for a week-to-week watch.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
Yeah, and honestly, I really like what episode 2 did. Like obviously, we got to see more of Agatha. We got to learn a little bit more about the teen. Mm-hmm. There's this spell here that that's causing this mystery the teen, like you said, is unable to say anything about his name or his history when asked. So a lot of people are speculating, like, who is under, what spell is he under? Because it definitely seems like that he is unaware, like he is saying this as if everything is fine. So I don't think he knows that he's under a spell, but she definitely does, because she's not getting the information that she's asked that she's getting. But I think for him, it's just like normal. So it's interesting that they're even, whether his identity is a secret, obviously it is, but like he's kind of just going about his day, not thinking anything is wrong. And so I wonder, and some people are theorizing that this could be a big thing, or this could be something that is thrown away at the end of the day. We honestly don't know. Marvel has done both.
Well, if they throw him away, it would be bad. That would completely negate everything that I liked. Like, just, you take all the intrigue away. It's like, why'd you even set it up? So I hope that it doesn't lead to nothing.
WandaVision has a history, especially with Quicksilver, of setting us up with something that we think it's something else, and then ultimately just kind of gaslighting us. And it was like Evan Peters being in there was nothing at the end of the day, had nothing to do with his previous role as Quicksilver, but it was just a way to mess with the audience. So I hope that they, I wouldn't say learn their lesson, because they've also done this before with Iron Man 3 with the Mandarin. So they have a history with this. They could do it again, but I'm hoping that this actually leads to something more meaningful in terms of the story that they were about to tell. And then, we get all these not creepy. We get all these different witches. They said that they have to, you can form a coven anywhere within a 3-mile radius. There are witches in the 3-mile radius, and you need a coven to open the gate. And so she's kind of just getting anything that she can get her hands on. Within the journey, she's able to convince 3 different witches to join her into opening the gate, promising that their desires will be fulfilled once they get to the end of the road, even though many of them call it a suicide mission. And I thought that song at the end just slaps.
It was good. I liked it.
It's so good. It's stuck in my head. It's like,
it's catchy.
And then I thought it builds really well when you have the Salem 7 going after her. Audrey Plaza's character, you said Rio Vidal. Rio Vidal. She warned Agatha in the first episode that they were coming after her, and then as she's collecting all these different witches, you see we see a bird, we see a rat, we see a coyote or a wolf, like kind of there, like their symbols, and then eventually we see the Salem 7 form, and they're kind of approaching her house, and then the song is just building. We have the teen kind of running for his life, trying to hide everything and trying to basically just running away from them. And then eventually the gate opens, and then everyone's inside, and kind of like this is very similar in a way to the Wizard of Oz. They have found their road, and now the journey has begun for the rest of the season. So I like what they do here. I thought it was also interesting they leave their shoes the start of the road. I'm not sure if that's any ties to some sort of witchcraft or that I'm missing, but I really enjoyed what they were able to kick us off with, because to your point, I wasn't expecting much from it. I kind of gave it a shot to see, just early buzz to see if I'm going to watch this week to week, and I think there's enough intrigue there to kind of keep us interested. And if they really wanted to play with this could lead us into a different side of the MCU we haven't really seen often. We got little remnants of like again with WandaVision, toward the end of WandaVision, we really get to see, Scarlet Witch's powers, but also we have Werewolf by Night that's involved, and that can easily tie into these storylines. Whenever Blade gets off the ground, this could easily fit within these storylines as well. So it's interesting to see that now Agatha All Along is going to be kind of spearheading a new side of Marvel that it could be really interesting to see. Also, this is the first time we get to see the Marvel television banner. We heard about this, that they were changing it, and so now this is in effect. Agatha All Along is the first to use the Marvel television banner.
It's very interesting. I think we're off to a good start, and then kind of you mentioned it. We're in this Marvel versus DC. We're kind of on the ride for. Are you ready? You have anything else about Agatha?
Nope. No, we're good. We can move on.
All right. So we are going to be talking about the Max original or HBO original. Excuse me. The Penguin.
It was so. Before we even dive into that, the whole Max HBO thing is really interesting. A couple episodes back, we had talked about they were changing um, the verbiage of what is an HBO show, what is a Max show, and they said that starting in 2025, they're going to switch the branding to HBO with more of a household name and all the reasons that we discussed in when we talked about it in our news segment. But they said the shows that were unable to do that because the marketing was already done for internationally was the Penguin and the Dune series that comes out later this year, that they couldn't switch it to HBO. But then they were able to work out a deal where now those shows are now considered HBO's shows and not Max originals. So I just find the verbiage, all that stuff just interesting to me, of like how much they really fought for the Penguin. Really, it's like they didn't let it go. Like they let it go. It's like, oh, I guess it's gonna be your Max original. And they're like, no, this is ours, and we want to be HBO. So,
and I would say rightfully so. I mean, I think before we kind of dive into this episode, I think this is another series. At least for me, it had a really strong opening. I mean, we're basically seeing like Game of Thrones through Gotham, like the fight for power for who's going to run the city, and this is like the Penguin's rise to power. We're not going to see him already at the top. We need to see him from his beginnings and what that climb will eventually look like. I was really I was happy with the first episode. It's titled After Hours, directed by Craig Zobel, written by Lauren LaFranc, debuted on September 19th. 1 week after Carmine Falcone, this is pretty much picking up right after the events from the Batman and the destruction of Gotham City. Well, I like that we didn't dwell on like a full recap from the movie. It's like here's the important parts from the movie that relate to what's happening here, because it created this intrigue to go, oh yeah, that did happen. Oh, I should go back. Yeah. It makes me want to go back and rewatch the Batman just so I can have a deeper, better understanding for what's going on in this one.
Also, we also get a really cool like kind of visual reminder, if you forgot the events of the Batman, was that now Gotham is flooded now. So at the beginning of this episode, as well as throughout the episode, we see like the aftermath of Gotham getting flooded, and you just see like just streets covered in water, the destruction in certain areas, how he's dealing with the aftermath too. To me, I was like, I forgot about that aspect of the movie. And so visually to see that and kind of see a world in like a flooded Gotham, I thought that was just visually really cool to see, and really like a cool way to start off the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we see Oswald Cobb, or Oswald Cobblepot, as known in the comics, the Penguin. He's called by Alberto Falcone, Carmine Falcone's son, who is now the main crime boss and the heir apparent. He's looking they're in his apartment, which is above the Iceberg Lounge, kind of just, each of them are kind of going through his shit. Then they kind of catch each other. They sit down. He listens to what Alberto's plan of how he's going to change the drug game, and he watches him take these drops and puts them in his eyes for whatever drug he's doing. When Oz tells him that he wants to be a better, powerful monster, Alberto mocks him and he laughs at him, and she just shoots him and kills him like right from the first 5 minutes. And for me, when that moment happens, I was like, I'm hooked. Like damn, we're in like the opening of the show, and he just blasts this guy away. But I thought Colin Farrell played that scene so well. Like you can just see the shift in his eyes of like when that guy like really offended him. He's like, oh yeah, you gonna laugh at me? And he's like, fuck you. And he just opens up on him. And I just thought, I mean, what a strong opening.
But with that, like you had like again a compliments to Colin Farrell's performance, which I'm already feeling right next year's Emmys.
100%.
Like
100%.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you can feel it. Like he is giving he's already unrecognizable, and like he's delivering a performance of a lifetime here. And it is crazy how much I do not see Colin Farrell at all in his performance and his appearance. It's so good work here, but also compliments to his performance. He shoots Alberto Falcone, and he laughs. He's like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna laugh at me. I'll laugh at you." Like, and then he goes, and then like it was implied that he was gonna say fuck. Like he realized what he did after that, and then it just goes to the title card. And again, great way to open up the show. Great use of implanting the title card in there, and now we are on the road to clean up his mess.
Yeah. So then he attempts to dispose of Alberto's body, and then he comes up to all these guys in the car. Also in that scene when he's trying to dispose of the body, I thought, like, you're open on this wide shot, and he's got like all these clothes on, and he's walking down the stairs. And as it was happening, I was thinking about it. I goes, I'm surprised he just doesn't throw the body over. And it's funny because he goes through the same, and it's just funny, like we go through that same thought process. He went to the stairs, and he just throws the body over. And to me, that was just a sign. He's like I'm ruthless. I don't give a fuck. I just killed this guy. It's like, it's too heavy. It's like, fuck that guy. He's already dead. Why am I going to respectfully carry him down the stairs? I just shot him. Like,
it's so, that scene is so funny, which weirdly enough, this movie, sorry, not the movie, this opening, the premiere of this episode, no, I'm saying it all wrong. The premiere of the show it typically sets the tone for the rest of the series. And I was not expecting to have a lot of light moments that I was laughing at in the beginning of the show. That scene is a great example of it, where he's already limping, right? He's trying to get there. He goes down 2 steps of stairs, and he just
fuck it. He just drops it. It's like, all right, now we can get to work.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, well, that saved me a bunch of time. Anyway, moving on.
So then, we come back, he's grabbing the body, and then we come out to these kids who are trying to hijack his car, and he just starts blasting these kids away, and he corners this one kid who has a stutter. We don't know exactly what yet, but he has some form of disability. And in this moment, you could tell Oz was like, he wanted to kill him, but he kind of like, and in the behind the scene, I watched the after the episode behind the scenes, and they were talking about that. That's why they wrote him like that. They gave him kind of a shared disability, so he has some kind of, he's seeing a younger version of himself, of somebody who's trying to get by and just wants a chance. So he helps him dispose of the body. I thought it was so crazy. Literally, he has him help him, and as soon as he helps him put the body in the car, he goes, "Hey, guess what? I own you now. Either you do what I say, or I'll murder you and everyone you care about it." And he just says it so casually, and then they get in the car, and he's like, "Oh, look, this is Arctic ice. Don't you think it smells good?" It's like, yeah, it smells great. I mean,
and then you get all the way to the point too, where he's like obviously afraid that he's like, he's helping him dispose of body, everything. He gets to the junkyard, and he's like, "Well, you know what I have to do now, right? Like, I'm gonna have to kill you." I mean, it only makes sense. Because he even told him to go look at the sunrise, and then he pleaded for his life, and obviously that it paid off. He's like, "All right, I can see you're useful. Come on, kid, let's go get some breakfast."
He's like, you ever go to that? You live over here? You ever go to that place and mix the slushies? It's like, I know I just talked about murdering you, but you're here now, right? I also like when they're eating lunch, and he's like, "Oh, they didn't give me enough pickles." And this guy who's like afraid, and he's trying to be nice to him. He's trying to appeal to his better nature. He's like, "Well, I don't want your." He's like, "Oh, you can have my pickles." He's like, "You think I want the pickles that have been in your dirty ass mouth? I don't want your fucking pickles. Get the fuck out of here!" Like, why would you even? He looked at it. He's like, "Why would you even say that shit to me?" Like, I thought it's just another one where I feel like here, like the dialogue is just so rich. It's so like Like they've basically said, like, you're not gonna see Batman in this show, which is fine, because we're literally learning about the underbelly of Gotham, and like the whole crime aspect, and like and how Gotham PD is eventually gonna play into that, and I'm all about it. I think so far, I mean, we haven't even gotten into like really the nitty gritty of the episode, and there's just already so many things to appreciate just from the pilot itself.
Yeah, and also just the interactions that he's had with this kid. Like, again, I wasn't expecting a lot of lighthearted tones in it. I expected a very dark, brooding, very similar to what the Batman was. I was expecting the exact same style, no levity. It's all about the crime, drama, all that stuff. And it has its moments that are like, okay, this is actually like, it's great in its dark moments as it is at its little bit lighter moments. And I think if it can continue to keep that tone throughout the whole series, we're gonna have something really special here. I can feel
I
it.
feel like this is gonna be one for the year. For me, this was just so strong. So then we move on where Victor's gonna help him. He learns Oz learns that the Falcons plan to assume control of his drug ring. He's called to the house for a meeting, where he's told that his operation has to shut down, and there's like no ifs, ands, or buts. And he tries to use the plan that Alberto gave him, and then this is where his sister Sophia Falcone, who's just got out of Arkham Asylum. I love that we're still getting hints of the DC universe, because they just said, "Oh, I just got out of Arkham," and who I was watching with Hannah, it's like, "Oh, like Arkham Asylum is like that's like the where they send all the psychopaths. Like that's where all the supervillains go." Like, so it's interesting. So that means at some point in this series, we're probably going to get some exploration of Arkham, and I think that's going to be something to definitely look out for. So he tries to skip town, but he's changed after his mother, who encourages him to take the mantle, and like you need to fight for what you want. Like, and it's very clear that this need for him to want to strive to be the most ruthless and get there on top is clearly influenced by his mom, and that his mom is like the one who he really cares about, because that's the one person, he was like, don't touch anything. And like, she was having issues with her medication, and, he's still trying to appeal to her and take care of her. So it's so interesting that we get this ruthless man, but on the flip side, he's still tries to be this loving son. So I thought that was an interesting dynamic they were to give us, but then they also showcase how the mom has influenced for this man to be the way that he is. So I'm assuming at some point we're probably gonna get some rich backstory with that. So then Oz goes to go see the rival. He goes to see Maroni in Blackgate Prison. Another callback to a Batman location within Gotham. He wants to bring the drug control to him. Maroni is reluctant, but reconsiders after. And this explanation says that he reconsidered. But I don't think I gathered that from the scene. What I think that him doing that was a setup for what happens later on at the end of the episodes. But he gives him.
Well,
go ahead.
I think it's a little bit of both. In like him giving him the ring was initially a setup, but it can also be used as a sign of loyalty, more or less. He's like, hey, I got the ring back for you. We'll keep in touch. But I think the main purpose was, and I feel like it could be used for multiple purposes for the sake of Oz, like for the Penguin. It's like, if his plan goes the way that it goes, this is now this is a framing. He's using the ring for framing him for the murder. But if that doesn't go out as planned, then it's a sign of loyalty that he can put in his back pocket. So I think it could be seen either way. But toward the end of the episode, it was framing him for the murder.
Yeah, but maybe one thing I do recognize, and something that we see showcased throughout the episode, is that Oz is opportunist. If one plan doesn't work, then he still plants seeds for another plan to be set up in place. So maybe he originally went there to try to get him in on the drug ring, and if that didn't work, his plan B was to plant the ring for his other route. Because the only other reason he would need to show the murder was the Maronis if the Maronis weren't going to be on his side. So I could see that he went in there already having his plan fully realized. So he returns the ring. Sophia, they catch up with him. That torture scene where she tortures him, that was ruthless, brutal. I mean, what a crazy display of brutality, and how Oz tries to talk his way out of that kid lying, and then he's like, yeah, just kill him. He's a liar.
Yeah. And then she does. And then she kills him. Rather, it's like, okay, he's a liar? He's like, yeah. And then she shoots him. It's like, is that what you wanted? He goes, yeah, I guess. And that to me that was just showcasing how crazy Sophia Falcone is. Like, we saw how much she was kind of like, we saw her walk into the room earlier in the episode, and we saw the other guys that were in the room kind of just stopped what they were saying. And like, she brings this like authority to her, the power that she has. Like, we don't mess with her. And then we saw them have the dinner later on, and they were having the conversation. He was basically lying to her that he does not know the whereabouts of her brother. That's mainly because he murdered him. And like he knew that she was close. Then obviously he tried to escape. Mother convinced him, come back. But yeah, that torture scene, him with the barbed wire around his armpits. Oh my God. That was a rough. Also, he's like butt naked in that scene as well. Like, they really strip him down. Again, compliments to the people that put that fat suit together for him. It looks great. I know Colin Farrell says, he was commenting about the show. He's like, I never want to put on that fucking suit again. He found it so uncomfortable, and it took so long for him to put on it. But at the end of the day, for the craft of filmmaking and for the television show, it works. Like, all that hard work really shows in this first episode of all the dedication they put into it, and also within his performance. But that torture scene was brutal. And then also when they, at the end, where the car just crashes in to their lawn, Sophia goes out, just checks out what's going on. She sees her brother in the trunk of the car with a missing pinky finger where the ring typically sits. Putting two and two together with the payback on the hood of the trunk, and then you just see him laughing again. He's like, it's again the very similar laugh he did at the very beginning of the episode, but this time he feels like he has now yet again have the upper hand in what's going on.
Yeah, because he was able to weasel his way out. He was basically planning that the Maronis killed his brother. He cut the pinky off, and then eventually word's gonna get back that Maronis got his ring back. How else would he have got it unless he killed him? And even if he says, he was like, even if they say it was me, it's fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then now the episode ends with Oz's release. They let him go, and then now him and Victor are going to plan to take control of the Falcone crime family. So this is basically the kickoff of his rise to power. Again, in a different vein, but I felt like this opening was really, really strong. And we have to show credit. I took a couple of screenshots of of his prosthetics, of his suit, of the makeup. What attention to care. We're getting a realistic Cobblepot, so they took the time to showcase you his injuries. And just look at the attention to detail they put on his foot. His face, you can't even recognize him. It is unrecognizable. It's just a testament. I think we're in for a really good season.
Yeah, that just looks so gross. But it works. It works really well for the show to give it that groundedness, that believability, all for the Penguin. And what a great start that I'm very much looking forward to watch this week to week.
Absolutely. So I think that's gonna wrap that up. Unless you have anything else.
I got one more thing. I found this very interesting. The composer. So the composer of the Batman is Michael Giacchino. Yes. The composer of the Penguin is his son.
Interesting.
Mike Giacchino. So just listen if you're following along, and if you're gonna be watching the series week to week, keep an eye for some of the musical tones. He's taking after his father, and I looked up his IMDb. He's done several little projects here and there, but I think this is definitely going to be his biggest one so far. So taking the themes that his dad presented, and now his son gets to kind of the passing of the torch. Is like, I did the Batman, you get to do the Penguin. And so
that's cool.
It's kind of cool.
That's great.
Yeah, it was really cool to see that. So
I'm excited to track to follow this for this season, and I'm looking forward for another week to week watch with you, sir.
Yes, and I think what I also find interesting, again, like we mentioned earlier, is that we have Agatha All Along, we have the Penguin, two classic Marvel versus DC on their shows, both going to be offering something different for us to kind of keep up with. But so far, to my surprise, I enjoyed both of these premieres. Obviously, the Penguin has style is way different than Agatha All Along, but I was honestly for both shows, I wasn't expecting much to come out of this. I wasn't expecting to be that interested in the Agatha storyline, and I wasn't expecting the Penguin to be as kind of lighthearted as it was. I was expecting a much more brooding, dark premiere, and I was expecting, like, I didn't think they were going to have a solid enough story to justify Agatha's All Along show. So both of them kind of proved themselves to me that this is worth something to keep up with. And, like, hopefully the story on both shows drive to some great television that we can enjoy for the next few weeks.
I agree. We'll see. Hopefully.
Hopefully. So with that, we gave you our Whatcha Watchins, our weekly binges. Now let's get into it. Our spoiler review of Blink Twice, again written and directed by Zoë Kravitz, giving us her directorial debut. So Ernesto, let's start it. Let's do that again. Ernesto, we'll start with you. What were your thoughts on Blink Twice?
Okay. I thought it was good. I thought it was a really good movie. It was something different especially for Zoë Kravitz's first outing as a director. What I've really appreciated with her is that her style was so distinct. Like, not to the maybe the same as Jordan Peele, but I got a lot of Jordan Peele Get Out vibes. But it like for her initially to come out that strong and already it kind of has her print on it that, you know, this is her style of movie. I thought it was a great first outing. Obviously, this is a story. Blink Twice is like a story of power and how that balances out, and memory and how that plays into it. I thought it was good. I also liked how in the beginning of the movie it's kind of happy and then just kind of, but there's like this slight dark undertone until we hit that midway. There's just like this tonal shift, like whenever all the information is uncovered, and it just gets like really dark. And I mean, even then, it's kind of like a dark comedy. You know, Channing Tatum sits down, and he's like, "So, everybody's dead." Like, that's, you know, yeah. I don't know. But the places that it goes, this story goes to a really dark place. So before we kind of dive into the plot and kind of the beats by beats, what are your thoughts, Matt?
Or even like you said, even before diving into the plot, like, I was actually quite surprised that at the very beginning of the movie we get a warning label that kind of emphasizes that, hey, some of this stuff can be triggering, fair warning. And I was actually quite surprised to see that at the beginning of the movie. And I appreciate it for, like, giving people a warning before they watch YouTube. But at the same time, it's like, I'm kind of mixed reviews on it, because at one point it's like, okay, so I'm being prepared for something that's going to be trigger warning to certain people. And so, like, in a way that's kind of spoiling some of the aspects of the movie, not directly, but like, yeah, when you already have a trigger warning, you're already thinking, okay, something that's going to be very graphic, uncomfortable, tough subject matter, one of them is going to happen within this movie. So now I'm already going into it thinking that. But also, like, so there's that. But also, me even going to the movie, not saying that I thought I was going to go in that direction, but the nature of this movie, I know I'm not going into a comedy. So, you know what I mean? I'm not going into like a rom-com. I'm not going into an action movie. I knew that I was going into like a thriller that could also potentially be a horror thriller. So I'm curious if the warning label was even necessary, because I think in some ways it did pull me out of the movie before he even started, that I should be preparing for something at some point within this movie.
That's fair. I think that's a fair assessment.
I'm not saying that it's not needed. It just, like, that's the way that I went into it. It's like, oh, okay, now I should be expecting something because here's a trigger warning. I don't know if it did that in the theater, because we didn't watch this movie in the theaters. I feel like that, especially since the way that we approached it, and I feel like that if you paid money, like if you went to go to a theater, in our case, we paid to watch this movie on video on demand. And so, like, I don't know if the warning label was necessary there, but maybe include the warning label if you're streaming this movie. This movie was presented by Amazon MGM Studios. So eventually Blink Twice is going to hit Amazon Prime. So it would make more sense there if the warning label was present, like in a streaming service, because anyone can just click onto it and be like, oh, hey, before you continue this, like, here's this warning label. But we paid money to watch this. So I don't know. I'm really mixed on it, because I feel like for me it affected my viewing experience a little bit.
I'm all for, I mean, I think that's what you look at the rating. Like, I think that's what the rating is for. Like, if you're worried about what's going to be in the movie, and based off of the rating, then that's where you go for that. But I mean, I get it because
Yeah.
it is hard to watch, and it's it's
Yes.
something that's very serious, and a lot of people are very sensitive about it. I'm kind of I'm with you. I feel like it shouldn't be there. It's better if it's not there, but I understand the reasoning why people put there, and if that's what people need to get them to go see movies, and whatever, then I'll take it.
That's fair. But as far as my thoughts in the movie, I will say that I was expecting a little bit more. As you already know, going into the movie, something's off. I mean, look at this poster.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, oh, we're gonna jump in and have a good time. So I feel like in certain ways that it kind of very in the opposite of like Speak No Evil, for example, the movie we reviewed last week. We knew something was off, but the way that we were presented that story, I think it did a little bit of a better job getting us along the ride there. And then eventually you get to see what's actually happening, and then the movie takes place from there. If you want to hear our thoughts on Speak No Evil, go tune into last week's episode. But with this one, I felt like I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop. Like I wasn't as invested into the mystery because I knew already going into the movie that something's off. So I think, in my opinion, we spent a lot of time pretending that there's nothing going wrong, and then eventually slowly getting to like, okay, there is something going wrong. And then I feel like in some ways I expected more of not the movie said it was going to do this, so it's hard for me to say this, but I personally was expecting more of a twist to this story. Like, okay, I know something's going wrong. Now the movie's telling me that something's wrong. Now tell me something I didn't know. And I feel like we never got that in the movie. I feel like it went according to plan. It's like, here's a situation, we're all happy about it. Something's a little bit off. Then we realize something is off, and then we're going to try to no longer be in the situation, and then the movie ends. And they did offer a few surprises, but I don't think at the end of the day, any of those surprises for me really stood out to be overpowering the main plot line of the movie. So I did, but overall, I did like it though, because I think this is a strong first movie for Zoë Kravitz.
I agree. So let's walk through it. So we have male artist and cocktail waitress Frida, she's working in an exclusive event with her friend Jess. The movie actually opens with Frida on the toilet, and you kind of get your exposition of who Slater King is, which is Channing Tatum's character. He's on like this forgiveness tour. He's doing the online "I'm sorry," staring into the camera, white background. I thought that was a kind of a nice call out to cancel culture, that like how much of the sorries that we see are performative. And that's the other thing. I don't think this movie was meant to be like a straightforward release. You kind of mentioned it earlier, like it is kind of like an indie film. It's more, I feel like it's more like kind of a note on class, and like there's a lot of social commentary that's in there, and kind of a lot of kind of like a story of power. So there are some good elements on there, but I do agree with you. So they're gonna work this event. She encounters billionaire tech mogul Slater King, who has stepped down as CEO after giving his public apology, and then he, say he's in the video, he's like, well, I'm gonna escape to my island to be away from everyone. This is an island that he owns, so he owns a private island. In that moment, we see that Frida and her friend Jess, they kind of work their way into the party, and she manages to meet Slater King, and they have the interaction, and she kind of gets in with him and his crew, and they hang out for the night. The party eventually ends, and it ends with him inviting them to come to his private island. So then, the assistant, who's played by Gina Davis, Stacy, she takes all their phones. There's Slater's friends, business partners, the photographer Vic, the private chef Cody, DJ Tom, and graduate Lucas, as well as 3 female guests. We have the reality show star Sarah, the app developer Camilla, and the lawyer / stoner Heather. They all have their nice rooms. They got their bags of perfume. You know, they all have matching clothes. They got high-end meals and cocktails and just like smoking every day. And it's kind of we get thrown into this montage of like the same day happening over and over again, where they get up, they get their clothes, and even I think right from the beginning, I thought what was interesting is that Frida, who's like she's almost like enamored by everything that's happening, and she feels like she's not really noticing all the weird shit that's going on because she's just happy to be there. Like this is like she went from hating serving champagne to now being served champagne and enjoying it. So I thought that was an interesting like dichotomy. It's like you used to hate doing this thing, but now here you are. What it really was is that you were just jealous, and because that you always wanted to be on the other side. You thrive. You look forward to being on the other side. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Whereas Jess is kind of like more skeptical. She's like, you don't think it's weird that we all have the same clothes? And they're like, no, he's just rich. That's just what rich people do. It's like, well, how did he know our sizes? It's like these are valid questions. So like Jess is like almost like the audience. It's like I feel like she's that person in the audience. It's like kind of trying to speak logic into the film. So I kind of appreciated her character just for that fact alone.
Yeah, and you also have Frida, who mentioned earlier, later in the movie, that she said that this is like when Jess was saying, "Hey, we really need to get out of here. I just want to go home," all that stuff, and Frida was like, "No, you got to do this for me because this is the first time I feel seen. Like this is the first time I feel wanted." So you can see that even her character, like she feels like she's either forgotten or not as loved as she wants to be, and so this is the first time she gets to feel that way. And also, but to Jess's character as well, even earlier in the movie, she said that like, "All right, so when is the human sacrifice?" Like she's already laying down what the audience is already thinking, that all of this feels a little off.
Yeah.
But hey, we're gonna quickly go into this Groundhog's Day montage of reliving all the happy moments again and again and again. And then even throughout those moments, I'm thinking, I thought something similar. It's like, are they wearing the same clothes every day? Is it just the same outfits? But like, are they washing it? Are they just have an endless supply?
I mean, he's rich.
Yeah.
He's a billionaire, so it's like probably
True.
New shit every day.
Probably, but they're all like, to your point, they're just all doing the same thing every single day. We're all having a great time, not really thinking about our worries and just making sure we're all just having a good time.
Absolutely. And then you kind of notice that Frida and Sarah are kind of both vying for Slater's attention. And then her friend Jess is noticing memory lapses. And I thought it was a nice nod because they kind of tie her lighter as the thing that helps her. Is like the thing that helps people remember. Is the thing that gets noticed. Even from before they got to the island, she's like, well, I should probably write my name on it because everybody's trying to borrow my lighter. And then we get to the island, and it's a constant. Every day somebody different has a lighter. And that's kind of like, I feel like that was her hint to realize that something was wrong, because she's like, well, I don't remember like this. I don't remember giving you that. Like when did that happen? You know, so I thought that was a nice little nod there, a way to kind of tie in what was actually happening.
Yeah, and also it was mentioned almost one of the first incidences of the movie where somebody else, like when they were waiting tables and serving champagne, somebody that were working with them asked for a lighter. And she's like, I really got to put my name on it. So that little detail was literally carried throughout the whole movie. That kind of was like of that visual representation of that character, especially when she went missing. And it was like, hey, we gotta, like, what is this? And then we say her name, and then kind of like the inciting incident, one of them anyway, that leads into the path that we later go down.
So once she notices she's having memory lapses, all the work, and we meet the local workers. They all have this snake tattoo, and then Frida has this weird encounter with this one lady who seems to recognize her and keeps calling her Red Rabbit. So during one of the nights of partying, this is where Jess is bitten by a snake, and later tell Frida she wants to leave. At breakfast, Frida notices that Lucas, the other guy who's there, also smells like women's perfume. So there's some, and I noticed that very early on in the, like as soon as she sprayed it on her, I wrote a note down. I go, the perfume's probably was what making her forget. And yes, lo and behold, later on, that's what we find out. That's what they're doing. And then this is when they're having what now?
I was gonna say that I didn't realize and it actually didn't take me to the end of the movie to realize that Lucas was also part of this trance as well.
because he was he was like the other newcomer.
Yes.
So while the men are away fishing, Frida discovers a room with all the red bags, and before this, she's already panicking because
I think she realizes her friend.
This is when she realizes, like, regardless of what she's forgetting, she knows that her friend Jess is missing. You know?
Yeah.
And she meets up with Sarah, and then Sarah actually has her lighter that says Jess on it. And this is the thing that ties together, she's like, I don't remember your friend, but this is telling me that she was here. This is kind of what ties them together. So while the boys are away fishing, they come up with this plan for her to go into Slater's office, and that's in where she recovers like all this horrific evidence of like them doing like terrible things to them. That's where their phones are. There's all of Vic's Polaroid pictures of all the things that they've been doing, and kind of the full documentation of everything that's going on.
Before that, you said that they have an encounter. That when Frida first goes into, when she discovers the room with all the bags, like she has that encounter with the worker, and trying to understand what she was saying. We later find out she's saying Red Rabbit, but the worker, whether she knew what she was doing or not, hands her this green bottle.
That's right.
And then like she's like, okay, whatever, I'll drink it, because then there was a language barrier, but I don't think there really was. And she just coldly drinks it. Then she thought that was disgusting, and then we later found out that was snake venom. And then that's when she starts remembering a few little things. Eventually, you said Sarah was her name. Sarah. You know, she gets Sarah involved. She then also drinks the venom, like just very quickly, and then they come up with a plan to try to get themselves out of the situation.
Yeah, because they seemingly, they find out that, because while she's going through the pictures, she uncovers what happens to Jess, and that, you know, the snake venom is what helps them remember. And then once they realize that she remembers, then she literally watched her friend die. Like, you know.
Like it kind of. Also, very similar to like a blink twice situation. It was very quick of that shot of like they were all kind of tied down. We hear Channing Tatum saying like she remembers everything, and then just quickly just snaps her neck. And I was like, wow, that was like very, very visceral, very quickly. And then we just kind of just move on with the rest of the story. Also, before she goes investigating, they want the other girls to start remembering as well. So they start mixing the venom in the tequila shots. And then now we're all drinking. Even Gina Davis says the workers, she's like, oh, look at these girls having a good time. Let me just take a few shots in here as well. Also not knowing that there is venom in the tequila.
I also like this moment kind of building up to the climax of the film, because this is like, here, we're giving you the thing that's going to help you all remember. And then we kind of experience it with them, like as it's happening. You said, these quick moments. Like first we get Frida, she relives her moments, and then we kind of see it happen through all of them. And I think like hitting those moments little by little, and it just exploded to when all revealing that the men have been like raping them every night and then wiping their memories using the flour. But when Jess's memories couldn't be erased,
using the flour or using the perfume?
The perfume that's based off the flour that's grown on the plant.
Yes. Okay.
So obviously this is where they learned that they killed Jess due to the venom, and then she finds all the Polaroids. Once their memories return, sorry, I lost my place. Frida and Sarah's attempt to buy time for themselves as Camilla and Heather's memories return, which I thought was a fantastic scene when those other two girls get their memories back and they just go ape shit on them. Like literally
without even thinking
about it. She like smashes that one guy's head in, and then they stab Haley Joel Osment to death. I mean, as rightfully so. They just go fucking crazy, because in some other flashbacks, you see the women like they just showcase a horrific scene. Like she's surrounded by candles, tied to this like statue, screaming, watching her friends being raped. Like it is absolutely, it's a rough scene to watch.
It is a very rough scene. Obviously, that's where the trigger warning comes in, and like. It's a rough scene that I feel like, because I saw the trigger warning, I honestly was expecting it to go even worse. Like I was like, oh, we're about to see stuff that's going to be very uncomfortable. and I thought they played it very well.
Yeah.
Like they showed enough for us to understand, but not go too graphic with it.
Absolutely.
Like we got just enough what we needed for the audience to understand what was going on, and then we can, as the audience, kind of fill in the blanks of what else could have happened with some of the visual imagery that we were getting throughout that scene. And it didn't last very long either.
Yeah.
So I think that was done very, very well, in my opinion.
Then we see that Slater kills Camilla, and the men, they hide in his villa where he actually mocks Lucas. And I thought that was a really interesting scene because he talks about that, at least I know that I'm bad and they're good, but you know what's worse is somebody who does nothing, and that's you.
Yeah.
Like somebody who sees the injustices going around and literally chooses to do nothing.
But also, he was a victim too. He's like, I understand you don't understand what's going on. He's like, it's fine. You don't have to understand. You just do nothing, and like kind of same thing what you just said. But like, it took me a minute to realize that Lucas was also a victim in all these crimes as well.
So then we get Frida's running away, and then she's actually gets attacked by Stacy because she said, "You think I wanted to remember?" She actually preferred to be ignorant of the men's behavior, and it actually is a call to why she's so clumsy and dropping and forgetful, is because who knows how many times she's had to like make herself forget, like how she's who knows how much of that stuff is actually in her system. Frida stabs her. And then Stan, the security guard, ex-Marine, is killed by... He's actually bludgeoned to death by Sarah, who takes his gun. Cody escapes to the woods, but is presumed killed by Sarah. In the villa, Lucas tries to escape, but he's shot in a trap set for Slater because she knocks on the door, and she opens the door. He tries to run away, and he gets his head blown off. Afterwards, Slater traps Frida in the villa, and this is kind of like where everything is kind of unfolded at this moment. It's revealed that Frida has been on the island the year before and experienced the same events. She's actually the one who bit off Vic's pinky finger, so it was a nice callback to the earlier in the film when they were asking him what happened. And also the scarring on her head was right before she got her memory swap. The maid recognized Frida from her red rabbit's finger down. He laughed.
Yeah, and also the lip gloss that she found in the drawer that like she pulled out and was like, oh, this is gross, and then put it back in there. I guess that was left from her previous visit that we later found out that was actually hers from the last time she was there. So a lot of like it was that was honestly one of the few parts I was actually surprised with, that, oh snap, she was here before. But I feel like that didn't take us anywhere. I honestly didn't feel like that gave us any more information, that as if like whether she was here or not, that didn't really do anything for the overall story, in my opinion. Like, just other than the fact that has been a victim for quite some time now, and that's just like adding to the horror of it. But as far as story-wise, it didn't do anything in that moment for us to learn that information.
I think for us, it just highlighted the extent of his power. Like, it just showed like that how he thinks he can get away with everything, and that there is no limit, that he's never actually sorry. Like, it's not what he meant. You know what I mean? Like, he meant to do this. Like, to him, it's all a game, and that's why he chose you out. He sought you out again because he thought that he's powerful enough. He's like, oh, I did it once, I could do it again, and that was ultimately his undoing. He laughs off his apology. He's saying there is no forgiving. There's only forgetting. Before leaving for Sarah while he is gone, Frida laces his vape with the memory-erasing perfume. I also thought it was like this just a small nod to the sound design. Like, every time he would hit that vape, like, you would hear like the crackling. Like, it was just the sound design was just very prominent in that aspect.
Yeah.
They made him forget the previous events and the panic upon seeing the bodies. Slater slips. He knocks himself out. The villa catches fire. The two women escape, leaving Vic to die, but she saves Slater. And then that leads into the ending of the film. Rich, who also assaulted Frida on the island, encounters a noticeably disoriented Slater. And then later on, Frida is married to Slater and is now the CEO. all while drugging his vape with the flower to keep him compliant. So basically, it's a total shift where now she is the one in power and she is the one in control. And
yeah, which even her friend Sarah was like, "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" Because it was like, it felt like that it was implied that Frida and Sarah are the ones who made it out of the fire and made it out of this whole situation. And then the camera pans down and we see that Slater is like unconscious, also saved from the fire, to be all part of her plan that we realized it was just for him to now be using the forgetful drug and her to use that to her advantage to gain the power. I was also trying to figure out, and this is what I'm assuming anyway. I was trying to figure out why they were even collecting venom in the first place. Like, what was the reason behind that? And the only thing I can think of is that, at least with Channing Tatum, maybe they were infusing it in the vape, so he is able to
remember.
Like, if he, yeah, well, not remember, but like, because the smell is everywhere, so like everyone's using the perfume. So for him to not kind of catch on, some of their scent. He has his, the compound workers collecting snakes, killing them, using their venom, and then making it in the vape or maybe in the drinks or something along the lines. So they are not the ones forgetting, because otherwise, why would you collect it if you're trying to do like this, horrific acts and you don't want them to remember?
That's fair.
But that's the only thing I can think of, is that they were using it for themselves, obviously. So if they did get a whiff of the perfume, they weren't affected by it. Which is, on that it comes to think of, that's probably maybe one of the reasons why he bought the island in the first place, because he discovered this flower that can make people forget, and then also realized that the venom was also the the cure for not forgetting. I feel like the rules were a little bit loose on what you did forget, how long it took you to remember. Obviously, for Frida and Sarah, was much sooner than the other two girls, and they were taking like countless shots of tequila. So you would think after all that, it would come quickly, like it did for Frida and Sarah, but it definitely took a while. And I think that all that is just served as part of the story to be more dramatic when it came down to the moment when everyone's now on the same page and they realize what they've been doing. So yeah, I do like the ending. At the end of the day, I feel like this is a movie I've seen a version of before, maybe not in this context, but I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't that surprised by anything that happened, even with the ending. It's like, okay, that kind of checks out, of like at the end of the day that she now wants to regain power and shift the power to her benefit. And we even see toward the end when she's like talking to that guy at the very end, and he's like, "Yeah, you remember me, right?" And then I think we hear like the police getting involved. It's like, "Oh, look, there he is." I think the police were like maybe going to apprehend him or something.
Oh,
like just with that shift of
the
power.
Therapist? Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Yes, therapist, yeah. So we don't know what happened with her friend. I'm assuming she's just going to go about her day and, like just try to forget everything here. Or, I'm not sure what she's going to do with that. But also a little tidbit that I thought was a nice touch with that was that just kind of like power and social status. It was already assumed that these people were part of Slater's inner circle of friends. Yeah. And then it was revealed that like, oh no, we all just met. Like, I don't know these people. And it was just that symbol of status that no one wants to say any of that, just because they want to be in that sense.
They want to be with the cool kids.
Exactly. I thought that was a nice touch to add, that like these people don't really know each other, except for the men. Obviously, the men knew each other. But everyone who was who was using the perfume, they obviously they did not know each other prior to this, and this was all part of the scheme. Also, I think it was bold for them to assume that everyone would be using the perfume. Like, it was just there. It wasn't like a mandatory thing to take. But I think when you have no clothes and you have no all your belongings are gone, and you're just kind of just accepting of the luxury what this is, I guess it's easy to like, oh well, I have my clothes, I have my outfit, and I might as well use the perfume that's there too. But yeah, I felt like, as much as I enjoyed it, I feel like in some ways this is a movie I've kind of seen before, so I wasn't all that, like, at the end of the day, I wasn't wowed by it. I'm not sure if you felt the same.
I thought it was decent. I just thought, as far as her first outing as a director, that I thought there was something unique. There's some unique elements to take away from the storytelling. There was a lot of story elements that I really enjoyed, and other ones that probably fell a little flat.
Mm-hmm. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, the cinematography looks fantastic in this movie. I thought she did a great job of like kind of directing certain scenes. One of my favorite moments in the movie was when they're all asked to get together and like take a photo when they first arrived to the island, and then Vic, played by Christian Slater, took a photo. Right, his name is Vic, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Vic. He took a photo with the Polaroid, and then very quickly it showed the logo. It was like a very like quick, like he took the photo. There was a flash. It said blink twice, and then it went back to the scene. I thought like to insert her style in there very prominently in this movie. I think that's the strongest thing I can take away from it. Like, oh, you have a vision and you have a style that's very unique to you. And so I very much looking forward to see what you can do with that in the next film. But with this one, I think to me this was a strong outing for her.
I agree.
And then I also, what do you think about the Polaroids? I don't think they added much at all to the story.
No.
And the fact that it's so prominent throughout the movie, as well as even the poster, I just don't understand. Like, there's so much marketing and so much like focus on it that ended up not proving much to the story at all. Like, the only thing that it proved that there was documentation of what was happening, but there was no shocking information that came from it. Like, it wasn't used as a tool for anything. So I just was wondering why to include it, other than the biggest point of this movie was to showcase that she was here before.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't really need to see that other old white men were also here on the island. Like, that doesn't make any, like, that didn't do anything for the movie for me.
I guess all it did was just showcase how large this operation was. It's the documentation that they've done it before. You know, that's kind of how I saw it. Like, it's just like their record keeping and how much of it there was, and like let's see how many times they've done it.
But also, like, the organization of that record keeping was just like, it's in a box.
Yeah.
Like, we're not even thinking about it. I feel like it would have been a little bit more, like, I think the photos would have hit a lot harder if it was displayed in a room somewhere that she happens to be, that she was like, when she was looking for, like, maybe the room with all the red bags, in the same vein, it was a room of a shrine of the photographs. And then you get to see all the horrific images that they were able to take. And this is like their shrine of their doings. And I feel like that would have hit a little bit harder than for her to find it in a box and like not really thinking about it. That's just the way I see it. But yeah, I felt like with a lot of emphasis on photography, I feel like that aspect of the film wasn't used that well. I feel like at that moment it fell a little flat, in my opinion. But some of the other shots in this movie, this looked great editing wise. I thought it was edited very well.
It's so specific too.
But anyway, anyway, your final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I thought it was an overall decent film. I thought it was a great outing for Zoë Kravitz as a first time director in writing this film. I thought I like the attention to the detail with the sound design and the cinematography and the editing. Also, like, Channing Tatum plays a really good creepy billionaire. Like, he's so, there's something so charming and creepy about him that I just really enjoyed about his role. And I would say, out of 5, I'm gonna go 3.5.
3.5. Okay. Yeah, I was sitting around the 3 range for myself. But yeah, I mean, overall, like, I thought, again, I agree with you. I thought it was a solid outing for Zoë Kravitz in her directorial debut. I did not dislike this movie. I just felt like that, like, as far as what this movie did was showcase her style and her energy and what she's able to do behind the camera. So I think it's also very telling of her to be an actress and yet not put herself in a movie.
Yes.
Like, a lot of actors, when they do become directors and writers, they're also inclined to star in the thing that they wrote and directed. But in this case, it just shows that, hey, this is Zoë Kravitz as a director. This is Zoë Kravitz as a writer. This is not a showcase of all of that, as well as my acting ability. So I think that was a strong delineation that she put into her first film. So yeah, a lot of good things to come out of this, but I think like, overall, when I look at this as a whole, I wish I got more out of this, but I like what I got, if that makes sense. Fair. Yeah, I just wanted a little bit more. So ultimately, I'll give it about a 3 out of 5 stars.
Okay.
But yeah, a solid outing. I'm not mad at it. I thought it was a pretty good movie. I just wish the mystery was a little bit stronger. But I think as much as I think the story is one of the weaker elements, it was also the stronger one as well. It's kind of a mixed bag for me. But yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. Not one I feel like I'm going to revisit that often, if not at all. But again, a good showcase of Zoë Kravitz. And so I very much look forward to see what she can do next in the director's chair.
I agree.
But there you go. That's our spoiler review on Blink Twice. And that is all the show we have for you guys this week. Ernesto, tell the people what we're reviewing next week.
Next week, we're going to be reviewing DreamWorks' The Wild Robot, starring Lupita Nyong'o. My son Edward told me about this. He's read the book. He said it's fantastic. I'm really liking this different animation style they've got going for it. A lot of early buzz about how great this movie is. So I'm looking forward to checking it out for our next week's review.
I mean, I think this movie's already sitting in 100% right now.
Yeah,
it is.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, it's having a strong outing, and believe it or not, I think this is the first time. I could be wrong by saying this, but I don't think I am. Excuse me. This is the first time we are actually doing a spoiler review on a DreamWorks animated film.
It's quite possible. It's very possible.
Mm-hmm. I know over the years we don't really gravitate toward DreamWorks animated films, but this one feels something a little bit different. Feels a little bit special. That has gathered our attention, and now at this point of the game feels worthy to kind of give a larger review over it. Like we talked about, a couple weeks ago, we talked about Kung Fu Panda 4. We've mentioned Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which was, I think, the last great DreamWorks movie to come out in a while, and it also showed a tone and shift in animation style within the movie. So I think they're trying new things, and I like that about DreamWorks because I always felt like that they are geared toward a much younger audience. But now with this movie and all the positive buzz around it, it feels like that we're getting something a little bit different than we're used to from the studio. So I'm very much looking forward to see what all the positive buzz is around and see if it actually holds up to that. So I'm actually really excited to talk about this movie next week.
Same. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. But yeah, so look forward to that next week. If you want more from us, you can always follow us on our social media channels on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Box Office Bingers, our X and Letterboxd page at Box Office Binger, and our Threads and Instagram page at boxoffice_bingers. The fun does not stop here. It continues on all of our social media channels. So be sure to give any one of those a follow. We really do appreciate it. Thank you everyone for just coming and listening to us talk about movies and TV shows. Really do appreciate it. Come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. And for that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
Ben Ernesto Santos. See ya.